Welcome back to the Crypto's Key Conversation. In today's video, we're going to cover a lot. We're going to start with James K. Filing here, giving a little update with the Ripple versus SEC case. We're also going to come and take a look at Johnny Deaton's tweet here when he's covering Squawk Box in regards of ICOs and securities with the SEC versus the CFTC and who should be governing what. We're also going to be taking a look at Layla's tweet here when she was on Fox News talking about the chance to regulate the crypto market. And obviously, we've had a lot of stuff that's been happening within the crypto space as of late with the downward pressure and selling based on UST, obviously inflation and other geopolitical concerns that's been affecting the market. So now the big narrative of regulating stable coins or regulating the crypto space has really been surfacing. So we kind of have a quick conversation on that. And we're also going to be covering a lot of these conversation that's been happening with these so-called backdoor, or as they say, a safety net for the whales within the Luna community, the Terra Luna community, in regards of what happened to their Bitcoin reserves. So we're going to kind of cover some tweet threads that's been covering Kwon and the Terra Luna Foundation and the whales that were a part of this community. And there was kind of some conversation of like, hey, did they leave the retail investors to hold the bags and have all their worth and their value go to zero while they kind of bailed out their whales in their community? It's kind of been the talk in the Twitterverse as of late. Then we're going to come into a lot of other stuff in regards of Do Kwon, proposing to fork Luna, which CZ didn't recommend that. He didn't think it would fix it, and some backlash that's coming from the community. And then just some updates from Cointelegraph in regards of another depegging of the DEI stablecoin. It says Deuce Finance's dollar peg stablecoin falls below 60 cents. Do Kwon to fork the ecosystem, what I was talking about. Celsius Network crypto mining subsidiary. SEC filing suggests plans for IPO. So obviously they had a settlement with the SEC. And then we had the Brazilian Stock Exchange will launch Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. But coming over here, looking at the CoinGecko, we're currently sitting at a $1.35 trillion market cap, currently down 2.7%. And as you can see here, Bitcoin still ranging in this, $29,000 to $30,000 range. Ethereum sitting at, roughly $2,000, $2,050. XRP sitting at 43. Let's see if we have any big gainers here. XCN, so chain at 9.9, eCash 4.7. So really not much going on. If we look at the crypto fear and greed index, we're currently sitting at a 14, and typically whenever we get into this 10 range, and it was rare, I think we were below 10 maybe one time per our history from my knowledge, and that was rare. We dropped below 10, but typically this is like seen as like the reversal point, or the so-called, we can kind of estimate a bottom being near. So obviously we're at 14 now. Who knows if we're going to have some sort of relief rally and then we come back down, or are we just going to reverse out of here? We just got to keep keep it on track with the analysts that you value and that you follow, and keep tabs on the market. Moving on here, this is James K. Fowler. So he's giving an update. So he had tweeted on May 13th that, parties filed joint request for extension of time regarding attorney's fee connected to Met's supplemental report. So today he says motions for extension of time granted in a text-only order. Quote, any motion for attorney's fees are described in the court's April 19, 2022 order is due by May 27, 2022. So XRP Crypto says, why are they asking for an extension to May 27th over an insignificant amount of money? So I thought this was funny. This is kind of how I've been literally. I'm a huge XRP holder, and my family's been affected by the lawsuit that's been happening. Obviously this, kicking the can further down the road and delay is, frustrating. But like at this point, I'm literally just like, this is getting crazy, because we as a community have been surfacing more stuff that's just showing the scandal and the ETHgate, scandal, and the just the shady closed door dealings that was happening with these shady players within our industry. So I'm just literally just like, every time I'm just like, wow, this is gonna be crazy. So who knows? I mean, that's just kind of the update from James K. Fowler, and I want to thank him for that. Coming over here, I thought this was interesting. This is from Genie. It says Reborn 13 says settlement of the lawsuit will happen simultaneously with crypto regs. The world leaders will then decide for XRP to take reserve currency status, as the USD no longer fulfills the needs of that role. ISO 20022 will enable to seamless switch, or flip on the switch. No room for BTC in the new system. So obviously I highly value XRP. I invest in Bitcoin. I invest in a lot of assets, Ethereum and so on. I'm not sure, if if this is a real thing. Obviously, Bitcoin has this so-called store value, and a lot of whales and a lot of people out there are accumulating it and hodling it. But if there's some truth to this, I can kind of see this happening. A settlement come in, and then we have crypto regulations. In a sense, right after and at the same time, I can definitely see that kind of fulfilling, especially from my understanding of, Ripple, the company, and XRP's utility and use case, and, this whole new, World Economic Forum, and their digital assets that they kind of, in a sense, back on their website, and kind of the whole, development of the pipeline of this new financial system, and yada, 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 all this stuff. So I can definitely see this being the thing. And it's just going to be a waiting game, to see it all play out. Johnny Deaton has put up this from Squawk Box, and I thought this was interesting because this is truly how I feel. It's just like he says, I'm so sick and tired of U.S. regulators and bureaucrats stating how difficult it is to do their jobs. It really isn't that difficult. The UK's FCA has tackled the issue. Japan's FSA has tackled the issues. ICOs equals the SEC. Tokens traded for a decade that you can stake equals CFTC. I mean, that's pretty much how it is. It's crazy that this is truly like a hard or complex topic or concept for them to understand, which is crazy. But we're going to play a little bit of this here.
There's a lot of back and forth. There's a Senate bill that's made its way through that would leave the SEC in charge of a large portion of the oversight. I think it would move some of the regulation to the CFTC. Are you familiar with that bill, and what do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of an age-old issue between the CFTC and the SEC. We have a great relationship historically. We continue to communicate and work together. We have a lot of common registrants, but within this space, in my view, it makes sense for commodities to be regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and securities to be regulated by the SEC. And within the sphere of digital assets and the coins, which make up thousands and thousands, there are naturally going to be some commodities and some securities. And in my view, it makes sense to sort of parse through the two and figure out where we can place each. And it's going to be difficult because from a legislative standpoint, again, given what I said earlier, given the novelty of some of these coins and the technology, we're going to have to figure out what would constitute a security under the traditional securities law and what would constitute more of a commodity so that we can regulate appropriately given the two different legal structures.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's all...
straight up and down. I mean, the crazy thing is just get Gary Gensler, tell him to back the heck down and get the proper verbiage and really get the people that know what's going on. And he knows what the heck's going on. I mean, he used to teach at MIT. He used to teach blockchain technology, and he spoke of, digital assets. So it's like, get people in there that are ethical and that aren't biased and aren't picking winners and losers and following this narrative that Jay Clayton had left, this big turd he left at the SEC. Get people in there that, can develop the verbiage and understand what each individual digital asset is and, verify where it should be and then go from there. It's crazy. I mean, what are we paying taxes for? What are we paying for their seats for? It's crazy. Moving on here. This is Layla Helpern. She was on Fox News, and I thought it was quite interesting. She did a great job in kind of interviewing and kind of responding to this interviewer here. It says, just like the government, the Fed will use any emergency to dig its claws in. And when it comes to Bitcoin's price, nothing is systematically wrong. The network is working exactly as it should. I don't worry about Bitcoin. So let's take a listen to this for a minute.
Are the Feds going to use this crypto crash here as justification to jump in here and ruin the whole market?
Oh, absolutely. The Fed will use any excuse, any emergency to, use their claws and try and take control. But ultimately, nothing is systematically wrong. Bitcoin is working perfectly fine. We have to realize that we've just had a 2-year bull market. Nothing goes up forever. And ultimately, if you look at the last 2 years, Bitcoin is up 700%, outperforming most traditional asset classes, including gold, which is actually down this weekend, down below $1,800, erasing all year-to-date gains. And we have to realize that the bull market was very much driven by the Fed flooding the system with money. People were putting their stimulus checks into Bitcoin. We're now seeing astronomical levels of inflation. People simply can't afford to be investing in alternative asset classes. They need to be putting that money into, living, essentially. Also, it's important to consider the geopolitical situation. Bitcoin isn't yet an uncorrelated asset. It is only 13 years old. It is that risk on assets. So naturally, people are going to sell their riskiest assets. But overall, Bitcoin is doing exactly what it's designed to do. I can still trade money. I can still send you money. It's still decentralized and it's still immune from government corruption.
I mean, hey, was it Leia? Leia? Yeah, Leia. You crushed it, girl. I think that's pretty much spot on. Obviously, she's talking specifically to Bitcoin. Obviously, we know Bitcoin leads our market, so it's important. But yeah, she hit it on the head in her little segment there. Johnny Deaton had commented talking about how he's been on this in this small segment. He talked about how difficult it was, and she did a great job. So great job, and I want to thank Leia for putting that up. Coming over here, this is an update from Bitcoin Magazine. It says, breaking, President Nayib Bukele announces 44 countries will meet in El Salvador tomorrow to discuss. So obviously, there's countries that are trying to follow suit. They're trying to get, out from under, what is it, the IMF? I mean, they're trying to figure out, like, hey, how do we implement this? How do we go about doing this? And obviously, we'll see kind of, what happens. Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, being, I guess we could say one of the pioneers, one of the front runners in this thing. It's just kind of like, the domino tiles have already started falling. It's just, once one does it, another, and then another, and then another, and then boom, pretty much, they're not going to want to be the last country to adopt Bitcoin or digital assets. So this is super positive. I'm curious to see what comes out of this. Touching up over this. Okay, so obviously with Kwon and the Luna Foundation and Luna and UST depegging, it's 1-to-1 ratio because it's an algorithmic stablecoin and it was exploited. There's been a lot of speculation in the community as of, okay, so what happened to that? I think it was like 80,000 Bitcoin. What happened to the Bitcoin reserves and yada, yada, yada. They were saying, the community's pretty much saying like, okay, did they utilize, a lot of the Bitcoin reserves to pretty much bail out the big wells within their community or their foundation to almost in a sense, I guess bailout is the proper word. Yeah, to pretty much like, hey, we got y'all covered, but when it comes to the small fish, the retail, they kind of had to deal with it. That's kind of been the speculation that's going on. This is kind of what I'm getting. I got a couple different tweet threads, not saying anything's valid, but it says, hear me out. The LFG_org created by Terra Money and Stable Kwon, so Do Kwon, to acquire a huge sum of BTC with Luna they could not sell. Purpose was never to save the peg, but to give them or others an exit parachute in the event of protocol failure. Conspiracy, release data ASAP and prove wrong. I mean, I think this is a pretty much a straight shot here. And for real, like if this isn't the case, prove that, provide the data for everything. And I'm sure, people are out there, the sleuths in the Twitterverse are out there trying to research kind of what's going on. We're going to see kind of what comes of it, but we're going to cover some more stuff. This is Ryan Selkis. It says, I hope it doesn't come out that Terra insiders, VCs, and team were quietly dumping while communicating that they were trying to defend the peg. If you were privy to inside info last week, you should have gone down with the ship. Otherwise, the legal response will be 100 times worse. What is this right here? Moving on here. This is Paulo the Parrot. Says, it appears an inside job was allowed to be carried forth to bail out a whales, all while the retail bag holders got incinerated. It says massive class action / criminal proceedings possible with this. So if we come and look at these images that were posted, this is from New Money Review. Terra operators bailed out crypto whales. Coming down here, it says, Luna holders of 2.7 billion in face value of UST were able to sell them for Bitcoin in 2 transactions last week. One with an effective Bitcoin it's a Bitcoin to UST pair exchange rate of 32,334, and the other with an effective exchange rate of 35,054. So coming over here, they're highlighting, Bitcoin sold, UST received, conversion rate. And here goes the screenshot of this. And it says UST price traded in secondary markets as low as 60 cents in the dollar. So 60 cents of the dollar. So coming over here, then it says the 2 exchanges are now likely to come under increasing pressure to disclose which cryptocurrency market participants were able to exit their Terra stablecoin positions last Monday and Tuesday at close to par value, while retail holders of Terra and Luna have lost nearly all their money. So I don't know. This is just me, picking up a couple different tweet threads and kind of looking at what the community has been posting on Twitter. So I don't know, what validity. I haven't done my own personal, in-depth research on it. But this is I just kind of want to give you food for thought and kind of get you thinking based on kind of what we've been dealing with within our markets, especially if you're a part of the, UST Luna community. But yeah, I highly recommend you come through it. And this is IMD DC Investor. So come read his tweet thread on this. Ryan Selkis, come read this as well. This is, what is this? 2-Bit Idiot. And then Real Paul Santos. Come read these tweet threads and kind of see what you think. So now this from Bitcoin Magazine says, breaking, Luna Foundation sold over 80,000 Bitcoin, just 313 BTC left in reserves. So I know there were some issues with this because there was people asking, okay, so what are they doing with the reserves? And there was no communication. I want to say for like a day or two after, this devastation has hit the market, and, thousands of investors lost everything that they had invested: life savings, child's tuitions, house payments, I mean, there was a devastation. I mean, people lost their lives to this, because of this. So this was a huge concern. Now they know that, they sold, 80,000 of it. So coming over here, it says Walter Brewer, speaking of, they were trying to, reclaim the peg to, the UST, yada, yada. Then there's been conversation like, okay, how do we rebuild? How do we, come back into, for not only for, the Luna Foundation or the project, but for the community. So there's been talks of, forking it and taking these other approaches. CZ from Binance, he was kind of giving his 2 cents on it, and there's been other ideas and speculations within the community. This is from Walter Brewer. It says, just at VeChain, so VET is offering up 30,000 to Terra Luna developers to help them migrate to its blockchain. So almost in a sense, giving them a helping hand to say, hey, let's see if we can help you out here if you come over on this side. Moving on, it's just in Do Kwon proposes to fork the Terra chain into a new chain without the algorithmic stablecoin. So here's been some backlash here too, because CZ and others in the community have been saying like this won't work type thing. And obviously Do Kwon and them have already been saying that due to the conclusion of what's happened recently with the depegging of UST and where it states, they were saying it's pretty much not going to happen. There's not going to be any rebirth of UST, and that's pretty much what they're saying in an article that we covered on Cointelegraph on one of our old videos. So obviously they're taking this forking of Terra chain into real consideration. CZ goes, shake my head, and I'm not sure what specifically he's responding to, but coming down here and reading some of the comments, it makes sense. It says Do Kwon literally chose the worst option by forking. He should have listened to the Terra community and did a burn instead. This is just like when you chose the bad option of trying to save UST and ended up killing both of them when they could have still saved Luna. Exactly my thoughts. So someone else in the community was pretty much like, no, this is the best approach for him, pretty much saving face. When it comes to, I think it's like expenses and some other stuff, but it was some great stuff in this these responses. But yeah, shake my head from CZ Binance. And if we come over here, it says breaking. Here's another stable coin, and I put in air quotes up because now we have breaking. DEI stablecoin has lost its peg to the dollar and is down 33% in the past 24 hours. So, I mean, here we go. I mean, there was some, weariness when it came to USDT. So Tether, because I think it would range from like, 99.9 to like 96 cents or something. And then people were freaking out because they were like, oh my gosh, Tether is the biggest stable coin. And it's, pretty much kept, Bitcoin and Ethereum in the market up, all these years. And they were thinking that it was going to depeg just like UST and drop and the market was going to be decimated. Yeah, and there was some serious fear to and it made sense, and now you have another stable coin here depegging, and then we have an article covering up. It says Deuce, I think it's Deuce, finance dollar pegged stablecoin DEI falls below 60 cents. So following the fall of Terra USD, DEI, the algorithmic stablecoin by Deuce Finance, takes a nosedive below 60 cents. So I personally never heard of this, never utilized this actual stable coin, but I mean, boom, I mean, that's just not a good look. So if you're a part of this community, you had money in this, I feel for you. You got to take care of yourself out there, and like I always say, be safe out there. Speaking of, here goes what I was talking about. With Do Kwon proposes Terra hard fork to save ecosystem. Terraform Labs will put the proposal up for the governance vote on May 18th Asia time. So I'm just going to continue to follow what's going on. You can come in here and read this article. It's just a bunch of details on kind of what's going on. But I'm going to continue to follow to see kind of what's going on, because I know a lot of viewers out there, and there's a massive community that's been decimated by what's happened to the depegging of the UST. So a quick update here on Celsius Network, crypto mining subsidiary. SEC filing suggests plans for IPO. The SEC requires companies in the United States to file a S-1 registration for shares to be listed on the national exchange, like the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. So, yeah, Celsius, it seems like they may be getting ready to IPO. We'll keep tabs on this. That'll be huge for them. Right here, the Brazilian Stock Exchange will launch Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. Chief Financial Officer Andre Milanes said that the product will launch within the next months, whatever that means. I'm assuming that that's a typo, might be 6. But, it says, quote, we have around 30 national crypto exchanges apart from the international ones that operate here. We could offer a service to facilitate and standardize their operations. I believe it has something to explore in providing custody services in a settlement process. So the reason why I put this up, because, just more, more futures, more, awareness, more access. It can be seen as all positives. But I was bringing this up too because the whole the custody services. There's a lot of stuff in regards of regulation that's been happening. They've been talking about stablecoin regulations, Bitcoin regulations, talking about ETFs and all this other stuff. But then whenever you think about, especially the United States in particular, I mean, you can think about any major like bank, or like a BlackRock or a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, like these big, corporations or institutions that custody, assets or whatever the case is. This custody service stuff, it's a big thing. I think these self-custody, institutional custody, like I think this is a big play within the crypto space, and it's going to be one of the next big things, because it almost seems like, especially based on how, the SEC is kind of going at, platforms and projects and just, crypto exchanges and all the like, it almost seems like as if they're almost trying to funnel, either trying to push, these other custody, exchanges or these other custody platforms out if they can't comply, if they won't comply or whatever the case is, and funnel them into the pre-existing custodying or custodial, companies or corporations or institutions. So I'm bringing this up because you got to think about these things, because, I personally have, cold storage, hardware wallets, have, mobile wallets. I utilize all those different things. I don't like to leave all my stuff on exchanges and leave my stuff to be custody by somebody else, because of obviously we've seen kind of what's happening, staking it. Look what happened to, the Luna community, UST, and there's been other platforms that went under from people having their assets on there and they lost everything. You got to be very careful. But when it comes to this custody or custodial services, it's going to be a huge play. Like, who's going to be the one that's approved by the SEC or, some sort of U.S. government or, international government, whatever the case is. But I know I've been talking a lot. It's 23 minutes. There's a lot going on. These are the highlights that I wanted to cover, and I just wanted to start a conversation on it. But like I always tell you, stay strong out there. Be safe.